What we're going to do is we're going to actually take a Sportster style shell, and we're creating a rib in that actual sheet metal of this shell by splitting the tank down the center and using a T-dolly to create a flare. It's going to be a drawing of just a piece of 16 gauge sheet metal. It's just representing the technique that we're going to be using down the center of the split tank by creating over that T-dolly these flares. So two halves welded together with those flares are going to create this peak. So this is a sample of what we're going to be doing on a piece of just 16 gauge, two pieces of 16 gauge sheet metal. Creating that peak, that is the peak that is going to run down the center of the tank. So the Sportster shell right here, it's already been domed out here to take the flat out of it. It's been split. It's nice and flat. These are the sections that we're going to flare down the center of both these pieces. So we can match it together, get it welded so that we have a peak that runs right down the center of the tank. As a demonstration on this 16 gauge sheet metal, I'll show you what we're going to do when we're flaring down the center of the tank, just so you can get an idea on the piece of flat metal. I'm going to take a non-marring hammer. Basically this is just like a blocking hammer that I use in a lot of my fabrication. I'm going to center this piece of 16 gauge over here so we have some overhang, and it's not as much of a banging straight down, it's like banging down and gliding across the sheet metal. Roughly, this is what you end up with. Obviously a lot more refining will go into it before you get anything ready to weld. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a piece of angle iron. I'm actually going to tack it to the back side of this T-dolly to act as a guide for when I'm running the sheet metal. We'll hammer around here, but this will guide the sheet metal so we have the right amount of flare hanging over the edge along the whole edge of the gas tank half. Now that we have the rough flare down the center of each half, we're going to use just a body hammer to just do light planishing just to straighten the edge a little bit more. Alright, now that we have the two halves done, what we're going to do is find a really nice flat piece of plate that I have and put it on the side, and we're going to see where the gaps are. I'm going to look in the line of sight also to see what is protruding to one side or the other, and we'll do some adjusting with a body hammer. Right here I can see it waves out a little bit, so we'll just do a little bit of tapping right there. Check it, see where we need to go. We've got a little bit of touching in the center here before we can get this to sit nice and flat. We're going to get the two halves pretty ready to put together and throw a couple tacks on. Kind of tweak it as we tack some pieces together and flex some things around to get that rib to meet just nice in the center. Usually do that as I'm tacking when they're pretty close to flat. tack them together, pull them apart in some areas, and get them so that they line up as I'm tacking the two halves together. Got the shell tacked, about 1 inch intervals, right down. What we do is you tack, make sure that the two halves are aligned. If they're not meeting, you are kind of twisting the side of the shells like this to get them to meet, and then twist them back. Just get it to even all the way down. And what we'll do now is we'll run some beads down the center of the rib, clean it up, check things out on the interior and the exterior of it, see how the weld looks, and go from there. There we go. Got the first bead set right down. Got the center. Got the peak going on. And that's how you peak a shell. This is what we have after some filing. A little bit of flap wheel work and one of the blue Norton like paint stripping wheels. You run right along the edge, like carefully to blend some things in. And then we have a shell that we can make the tunnel and bottom for and determine where the cap's going to go, along with the petcock outlet.